Okay, this is a different type of video for this channel, but I think it's an important one. If you're here looking for a specific step-by-step instructional on how to create a YouTube channel, I want to stop you here. This is not that type of video. But what is it about? Stick with me. Welcome to Geek Philosophy, where we explore our love of geeky wisdom. My name's Brian, and I want to tell you about the mistakes I've made with this YouTube channel. Why? Well, first, let me say that the audience for this video is really anyone that is thinking of starting a channel. But I also think it will be interesting for everyone that has been sticking with me since the beginning. In a way, it's about how I've done what I've done so far, not so much about the what I've done so far. In other words, it's less about the content and more about the package that the content comes in. Through these mistakes, I've learned a lot, and learning from your mistakes is pretty valuable. So what's more valuable than that? What's more valuable than learning from your mistakes? Well, learning from mistakes that you didn't have to make, that other people made, and you can avoid them. So let's get rolling. My first set of mistakes are really technical in nature, and there are a bunch of technical problems in my previous videos. I'm not saying that my videos are bad up until this point. In fact, I think most of them are pretty good, especially for a YouTube noob. First, let's talk about camera choices, and most of the advice that I found said, don't worry about your camera, just use whatever you have. And that's actually decent advice. I have the latest iPhone and it works great. A little too great. You know, working with 4K video takes some serious computing power sometimes, especially when you're editing on an old iMac and using iMovie. There isn't anything wrong with either of those things, but trying to do it with 4K video just, wasn't working for me. And I found it wasn't really necessary. For now at least, I'm moving to 1080p, and I think it works. And I may move back to 4K in the future if I feel like it's a good choice, and that my workflow, and this is the key thing, my workflow lets it move that way. Because if editing takes so long that it's taken forever to get out a video, then I'm really kind of doing a disservice to myself, first and foremost, because I've got to do all the editing and shoot the videos and everything else on the channel, so that's going to be a problem, but also mainly a disservice to the people watching, and I don't want that to happen. So, cameras, I need to just admit that using the best settings on my camera were actually not the best choices. Secondly, audio. Now, I have some decent experience working with audio. In my day job, I've done audio narration for years, and audio editing has never really been a problem for me. You may have even heard me in such courses like Ethics for the Workplace. So editing audio has never really been an issue for me, but when it came to editing audio for a live stream, that was a challenge. People were joining from different systems, and they were doing awesome with their audio setups, but when you have one feed coming in with multiple different volume levels and you're trying to get everything synced up, and you're at a certain level and they're at a certain level, that's hard to manage unless you know what you're doing, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's a little difficult to explain without having been, diving in and doing it. So I'm mentioning to you now, think about it if you're starting your channel, especially if you're doing streaming games and connecting with people online. Yeah, but I'm going to fix it, and I'm working on it. You can probably tell from my first few videos that they were kind of talking head with some edited images or overlays, maybe some intercut video, and I think they actually turned out pretty well. But they are definitely different from my live stream videos, and different from the behind the screens videos, and different from my current videos. What's the reason? I changed stuff. I changed my hardware. I'm working with a new M1 Mac Mini, which is amazing, by the way. And I changed the software. I was using OBS before, which was sort of an open source streaming platform software that most people were using for the longest time to stream to Twitch or to YouTube for all kinds of gaming reasons, and I think it's great. I just didn't have the knowledge and the skill set to use it the best way I could. So I ended up switching to Ecamm Live, and Ecamm Live was built specifically for a Mac, which for me is great. If you're not on a Mac, sorry, it's not going to work for you, but for me, it's awesome. I can use it for my live stream, my video conferencing, and I can also use it to record. So I really like Ecamm Live, and I definitely think it was the right move. The downside? Well, I had a teleprompter set up that worked well with my phone, and I was able to do those talking head videos with a teleprompter, which made it a little bit cleaner of a delivery because I was reading from a teleprompter. I don't know if you guys could tell, but I was, and it worked out great, and I think it kept me on track. But Ecamm Live works much better with my Logitech C920 webcam. It's not to say that it won't work with my iPhone. It probably will work great, and I might be able to mount it in my current setup so that I can use my existing setup for teleprompter, but I just haven't done it yet. So I think I have a way to marry these two things together, but it's still a work in progress. So I even just announced when I switched over to my brand new virtual office space that has a green screen in the back, which is also new setup for me, that I had done that and I had switched over. And I announced it in the video partially because I think I was, concerned that the change might have been jarring to everybody, but it seems to be working so far, and let me know in the comments if you prefer one or the other. I feel like it's a work in progress and I have to develop it as I go. For me, making things in a way that makes sense and has a good, unique workflow is more important than getting the perfect view for what my video looks like, because it just means I'll be able to produce more, which kind of brings me to my last big mistake. I've committed to doing an episode a week, so that's one video about DM advice or player advice or any other geek philosophy that I'd like to share. But when the live stream started, that also gave me another 2+ hours of live stream D&D campaign to run each week. That does not include prep time and planning and other things. Now, I do my best to film what I can of my prep and planning when possible, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into making a D&D campaign, and when you run it on the fly and you're running it live and hopefully entertaining a few people, but also showing how it actually works in the behind the screens, this is a challenge to do, especially on top of the weekly videos. Now, none of what I'm saying right now is going to change. I'm going to just make all these things work because it's important for me, because that's the focus of the channel. But it is a challenge, especially when you're a dude with a day job. So was it a mistake for me to start everything and sort of have everything kick off with a promise to do a video of Geek Philosophy a week and then also have all the other stuff when it kicked in? Maybe, but I think that's the whole purpose of the channel, like I said, so I'm not going to change it. The big thing is I'm trying to show the real world D&D prep as a GM, DM, or how to run the game as just a normal person that doesn't have all the tech support, that doesn't have a company behind you. I'm also saying that I'm not putting down anybody that's fortunate enough to have that. If you are a larger streaming show and you've got someone that can help run the cameras and run all the other stuff, and players that are just focused on playing the game, that's amazing. And it's awesome, and those are goals that you might want to shoot for. But for most of us, we may not even be streaming our game. We may not even be recording our game. It's just running the game. And so as a DM trying to help other DMs or potential DMs get into it, this is the way it is. This is all of it, warts and all. And so when you see changes over time that were me making mistakes, hopefully it's analogous to us changing things on the fly like we normally have to do during a session. Okay, so what's the takeaway? What did I actually learn from these mistakes? I learned that I had to make them. I mentioned earlier that it may be better to learn from other people's mistakes so you can avoid them, and in general, I still think that's true, especially with big life decisions that could be a real impact to your life. But there are some things that you have to fail at, or at least screw up a little bit, in order to grow. And I think that if I didn't make some of the mistakes that I made, I wouldn't have started to think outside the box and started to think about new ways to implement some of the ideas and the goals and really the vision that I wanted. So let me just say, I will be making more mistakes, but hopefully the message will still come through, and hopefully you'll stick with me to at least watch the train wreck if it comes to that. Also, in this point in the video, I usually say, here's how I put it into practice, and here's where to go to watch it. Well, to watch how I put all this into practice, you need to watch my previous videos, watch everything that comes after, because then you'll see how things evolved. You'll see how the old videos and the new ones and the evolution of the channel happens right before your eyes. And if you have any questions about the content or how I produce the videos or how I change things, just leave a comment and I'll do my best to fill you in. Alright, I'd like to leave you with a little bit of geek philosophy from the late great Carl Sagan, and if you don't know who he is, look him up, and you've probably heard this from me a million times if you're one of my friends, but it pays to keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out. Cheers.